Hey y'all, it's Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am coming to you with semi an unhaul video, but also semi a haul video. I'm not actually going to show you the books that I'm unhauling this time. I think this is going to be part one of a series on my channel that is just going to be about how I'm overhauling my bookshelves. And so essentially right now I'm going to enter into the unhaul phase. I'm going to start getting rid of books in order to make some room. So I thought I would take you along today. I've got a bag of books to unhaul at my local used bookstore, and I'm probably definitely going to bring some things home. There's no need to lie to ourselves and say that we aren't going to do that because I know myself. And I black out the second that I enter a used bookstore. The thing with my local used bookstore is that it's feast or famine. Sometimes you go in and you find absolutely nothing, but sometimes you go in and you find everything you've ever dreamed of finding in the used bookstore. So I never know what day that's gonna be when I go in. But this is the first trip of what I'm hoping is going to be many over the next month or so, so that at least I can say I go maybe twice a month up to June. And if I go that often, I don't think the used bookstore will have enough time to have a lot of turnover to give me a whole lot of new books that I'm really interested in. So hopefully this time will be the only time that I really haul a lot of books. So I hoped going into this series that I could maybe number the books that are going out and then count the books that have come in and see if I'm doing an equivalent. And really, if I'm doing an equivalent, that I'm not helping myself. But this time I don't have really an exact count because I have a couple of things I'm going to throw in last minute when I head over there. So I don't really know. I would say it's under 20. Let's say 15. Let's just be generous because these are actually big books. This time, what I focused on hauling was that I really wanted to get rid of books that I read and genuinely did not like, but that I have been keeping around on my shelf just because the book is beautiful. And I'm trying to really divorce myself from that prospect. I'm really trying to get myself out of that headspace because there's only so many books that I can have. And there are a lot of books that I own that I think are really, really beautiful. And a lot of them are books that I really enjoyed. So the ones that I didn't, those are going today. Things like The Other Bennett Sister. I'm so glad that worked for so many people. It did not work for me. The Animals of Lockwood Manor, stuff like that, that was really beautiful and that I loved seeing on my shelf. But in truth, I need more space on my shelves. So I have the sense that the used bookstore will take all of those. And so hopefully I can tell you what I got in credit and it'll make you angry because really in the end, a lot of what I'm getting rid of today are newer releases or things that came out in the past few years, 2 or 3 years. And so you would think those are still probably hot commodities in the used bookstore. They will not give me half price for them, I guarantee you. And that's just something that irritates me because now I'm getting really irritated every time I go in there and I see how much they've marked up the price. Hardcovers are going for $12 in there. Get this. Put a couple of more with that, I can get the book new. And that's the type of thing that irritates me. But I need to come down off my soapbox because the double-edged sword of my used bookstore is that they do give you credit. And so essentially, when I go into the used bookstore, I don't spend any money. I just use credit. So that makes me feel like I really can't judge the prices on their books because I really don't pay that price for them. I do, but it's in credit, which I am more willing to part with. But still on principle, some of those books, the way they price some of those books, on principle, I won't even get it for free with credit. I just won't do it. But that's the double-edged sword for me, is that I really want to support my local used bookstore. When I unhaul books, I really want to make sure that they have first go at them, especially newer releases that I know somebody would be really excited to come upon at a used bookstore. But at the same time, if I enter that space, I'm gonna walk away with the same amount of books that I unhaul. So that's why I'm hoping I can do this pretty rapidly and unhaul a couple of times a month for the next couple of months. And then maybe I will gain more space and they won't have the time to put out more things that I want. I do expect today to come home with quite a haul, but I just wanted to take you through my mind space here of what I'm unhauling Really, in the end, unhauling for me is never a vicious thing. It's very rarely because I hated a book. Today is one of the few times that I really got books off my shelf that I DNF'd permanently, that I really did not like, that I rated 1 or 2 stars. Today is one of the only days I've ever done that. For the most part, unhauling for me is just that I don't have a lot of space. And I am also not the rereader that I used to be. And even mediocre books, I used to reread quite a bit prior to BookTube. And now that's just not something that's part of my reading diet anymore. So even books that I enjoyed, but that I know I'm only ever gonna read once, I'm gonna get rid of those. They should move on and they should go to a better home. They should go to somebody who would really love them. So there's never really anything malicious behind me unhauling. I'm not saying that there is with anybody else either, but I'm just somebody who has always unhauled very frequently. And I know there are a lot of people who really like to keep everything in their library, whether they liked the book or not. That's not me. The next phase is gonna be something that I really don't want to do, but I'm gonna start going through my classics and I'm gonna get rid of things that I don't really care to reread, or editions that I don't really like, because if it's in a certain edition, sometimes I'm just not compelled to pick up a book in a certain edition, or if it's made a certain way. That's gonna be the hard time for me, I think, because I have it in my head that I really wanna keep classics that are specifically like my Penguin classics or my Oxford Worlds classics, that I really want to keep all of them. And that's just not feasible for me in terms of space. Now, I'm hoping what I do is that I create a lot of space, and I am also hoping that in the coming months I actually get a couple of other bookshelves, and then I will feel very, very successful. The thing is that not every book I own right now is on a bookshelf. I actually have stacks sitting elsewhere because I really do kind of want to keep TBR books separate, and that's something that I struggle with. And please let me know down below what it is you do. Do you have an entire bookshelf that is dedicated to your TBR shelf? As a mood reader, I really like having the options. I'm not somebody who wants a very small TBR, and because I unhaul pretty regularly, there's always going to be more books in my library that I haven't read than those that I have. And so I'm overwhelmed by the concept of what to do with books that are on my TBR, but it's led to a lot of Penguins being separate from this shelf, because down here I have my Penguin Black Spines as well. There's just not the room to add any more on this shelf. I have made a little bit of room on the bottom shelf, which makes me very, very happy. But I have a few of these elsewhere that I haven't read yet. The funny thing is, there are things in this stack right here and on this shelf that I also haven't read yet. And so I'm starting to just feel like I'm in a chaotic mess. Now, chaotic is my nature. I think that's where I work best. I don't really need an order, and I'm not somebody who gets irritated by my bookshelves being messy. That has never bothered me because I guess in the end I've never really had many bookshelves. But at this point I'm getting frustrated by the fact that things are everywhere. Things are in my bedroom. I have a place in my bedroom that's like a little chest, and essentially what I was keeping in there were collectible classics for a very, very long time. Before I got this bookshelf, that's where all of my kind of collectible classics went. And that's no longer what it is. It actually has a lot of Penguins in it now. It does have some collectible classics. It's just a mess. And that chest was never intended to really be a catch-all point for books at all. It was never intended to be another shelf. So I'm just feeling a little bit overwhelmed by what's going on. So I thought I could make this a series on my channel. Maybe if you're interested, I'll tell you the books that I'm unhauling today. I don't really have feelings one way or the other. A lot of these I read so long ago, or I DNF'd so long ago that I have no memory of. But I'll tell you a key point for me with DNFing is that I put them in my bag to take them away, and then I try not to look at it. I don't go back through that bag until I am at the bookstore putting it in front of the sellers at the used bookstore. I don't want to tempt myself to pull something out of the unhaul bag because I've done that before and it's been pointless. It has literally been pointless. It's just something that I start talking myself into. Well, you do want that. You might want to read that one day. You might want to reread that one day. And so that's also a thing I'm doing, is that I have some things on my shelves that I haven't read yet, but frankly, my reading tastes have changed. Am I still interested in them? They're doing no good here. That's really what I tell myself. They are doing no good to me here. They might as well move on and go to somebody else's house. But right now, I have this shelf. I have a shelf in my bedroom, and I have another tall shelf. The other tall shelf is probably the one that has the most space because it can stack books 2 and 3 in a row within the shelf. That does not work for me. That is the shelf I am looking to replace. And so unfortunately, it means that really I think it probably has the space for like 3 shelves like this, but I'm just gonna give in and get 3 more shelves. The books that are stacked up behind it, I don't see. And I think I'm such a visual person that I really need the spine of the book in front of me to remember I have it. So that just doesn't really work well for me. And then I have 2 shelves that are actually smaller, but don't really do much for me in terms of space either. Actually, I do have a shelf that's on the wall that has like all of the series that I used to read in high school, my Sarah J. Maas books, all sorts of stuff like that. Stuff that I want to keep, but that I don't really intend to get down and reread all the time. I'm not going to mess with that because when I put that up there, I knew that's what it was going to be. So maybe I'll have another video that will kind of show you all of my shelves and the various places in the house that I have to put books. So the goal is I'm going to get rid of some things, and then I am hopefully going to get a couple of extra shelves and put them elsewhere. And I think I'm just going to be a happier person for that. I really, truly do. But so today we are getting rid of things that I'm kind of upset to part with because I do like the idea of beautiful books on my shelf, but I didn't enjoy them. And that's the thing to me when you go into somebody's house and you look at their bookshelf. You want to have a conversation with them about those books, and I honestly don't want to have a conversation about the books that I'm unhauling today. And I feel like if you display them the way that I had them displayed, that makes it look like it's a favorite book of yours, and it's not. It's just that the cover was pretty. This is an example of something that I'm gonna unhaul. This is An Affair of Poisons by Addie Thorley. I wish I hadn't pulled this out of the bag. I'm not gonna get rid of this. I just can't do it. Look at that. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful, but at the same time, really, am I gonna see the cover of it or am I gonna see the spine? So the spine is not nearly as beautiful as the cover, but I listened to this on audiobook. You know, I didn't even read it physically, and it was just okay. It's not really a book that I intend to return to. Should I keep this? Honestly, should I keep this just because it's beautiful? I kind of think I am. I wish I hadn't looked at this one. I mean, that's just so pretty. Okay. We're gonna keep this one. You see I'm weak. You see that I'm weak, and you see I don't have much resolve. I don't have much self-restraint. So let's go on. We're gonna unhaul. Maybe I'll take some footage at the bookstore, and then I will show you what I return with. So this is not gonna really make much progress for us because I haven't been to the used bookstore in a while, and I have the sense that they might have something that I'm really interested in. So I'll check in with you later. Back at it again on the couch for our haul. I completely forgot to take any footage in the used bookstore. And I even thought that maybe on the way over there that I would film me like putting the books in the crate to give to them. And then you could kind of see some of the books that I was unhauling. It's like all thought left my mind. But they did have a lot. I brought home 13 books. I didn't wind up counting because I did throw in a couple of things at the last minute before I unhauled this morning. So I have no final count for what went out, but 13 books have come in. And I really have the sense that that's probably an equal trade. I think it was closer to 15, between 15 and 20, what I got rid of this morning. So I already have gone on and started filling up the bag again for the next unhaul. So I'm feeling good about that. And maybe I should be keeping a tally, and that would make me feel really, really good. So hopefully I can continue to fill up that bag and take it on, and I won't bring home what I brought home today. But so I have a few things here and it's funny. One of them, the first one we're going to talk about, is actually a book that is just like those that I unhauled. It's just a beautiful book that I wanted to see sitting on my shelf, and it is this edition of David Copperfield. I think this is the Arcturus edition. Yes. It's beautiful. It looks barely read. I just cannot resist it. I really could not. I walked away from it. I'll have you know, I did walk away from it, but I came back and I said, I just can't leave this store without this edition of David Copperfield. So I went in with good intentions, as I always do, but really self-restraint is low. As I said, I think earlier, I do walk into used bookstores and basically black out, and then I walk out with like 30 books. I'm like, what happened? Who did that? Yeah, that was me. But to tell you, I did get $40 in credit. I told you that would make you mad. For about 15 to 20 books, I got 40 bucks in credit, and a lot of those were newer books. So I actually was disappointed in that. But I already had $20 credit. So in total, I had $60 of credit. I walked out today with only $3 left. So that tells you kind of the pricing that's on these used books. Now, I think this one was $6. But again, because there's credit, I'm willing to take a chance on things that I wouldn't normally. That's another part of the used bookstore that's really dangerous for me, is because I'm not using real money. Because technically I'm just like exchanging my books for theirs. I'm willing to take a chance on things. And so today I did have a long talk with myself that I wasn't really gonna just pick up things that I saw at the used bookstore. I was going to go in with a plan. And if I picked something up, it had to be something that I really, really wanted. And I did really, really want this. I mean, this is so beautiful. I just love it. So I'm happy with that. I also picked up another Charles Dickens, and this is from a line that I really love. I just really love classics made like this. And this is Martin Chuzzlewit in the older Wordsworth Classics edition. And I am obsessed with these editions. I truly think these are some of the most readable editions of classics out there. And so every time I see one, I do pick it up at the used bookstore. So I've not read Martin Chuzzlewit. I've heard mixed things about it. I've heard things that make me think it's probably not going to be my favorite Dickens, but I thought that about the Pickwick Papers too, and I loved the Pickwick Papers. So I'm excited about this one. It does have a sticker on the front. I don't really care. This is just, look at this, perfect. This is the ideal way to read a classic. They're also apparently very sturdy because every time I see them, I think they're often in pretty incredible condition, and I just love the color of the spines. I love these editions. So every time I see one of them, I am really excited about it, and I'm really interested in it. Another kind of romantic era classic that I picked up is the Confessions of an English Opium Eater by Thomas de Quincey. This has been on my radar for a few years now, and I'm so excited that I finally saw it. Some things I don't buy because I know they will eventually turn up used at my used bookstore. And this is one that I decided to play the waiting game with. I'm very glad I did because it did show up, and it showed up in incredible condition. I'm very, very happy with this. This is apparently a very hard read, and it's one of the books that kind of convinced English society that opium was becoming a problem. So I think this is going to be a very interesting one. I think I might read it during Jane Austen July. I'm tentatively excited about this one. I think it's probably going to be a pretty hard read, but I am looking forward to it. So that's one that I'm really excited I was able to find. And another that I don't know if I'm going to say that I'm excited about this because I have my problems with this author, but I picked up Italian Hours by Henry James. I don't like Henry James as a person. So much of his literary commentary on other classics burns me up. I mean, actually really gets me enraged. So I don't really like him as a person. And I think in some ways that soured me on his writing. I was so bored by Portrait of a Lady that I DNF'd it. And so I've never tried him again. That was 3 years ago that I tried Portrait of a Lady. So I think it's time to try him again. And I thought, what better way than reading his ministrations on Italy? I think this is when he traveled through Italy. So he went to Venice, Rome, and Naples, apparently. I don't know. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm willing to take a chance again. I know I'm very, very hard on him. So many people love Henry James. I kind of want to be one of them. And I think I'll probably fall in love with his writing a little bit if he's kind of obsessed with Italy. like I am. So I think this will be a good one to ease my way back in with him. I then got a couple of historical fictions that I'm really excited about. So one of these is The Sisters of Versailles by Sally Christie, and then also The Rivals of Versailles by Sally Christie. And this is a series about the mistresses of Louis XV of France. And so this first one, I think, is dealing with a family where 4 out of 5 daughters were mistresses of his. And the second one is about Madame de Pompadour. I read a biography of Madame de Pompadour years ago, and it was endlessly fascinating to me. I have always been interested in her, and I'm really interested in Louis XV because I think he falls by the wayside a little bit. He's sandwiched between Louis XIV, who is incredible, and then kind of the French Revolution, Louis XVI. And so I think his reign kind of gets ignored a little bit. I think this will be good. I think this will be scheming and gossipy, and I'm ready for it. I've kind of been in a historical fiction mood, and I'm really interested in some kind of gossipy court drama right now. I think this will really scratch that itch. So I'm looking forward to these. Never heard of them. This is one thing that I do like to try to do also when I'm at my used bookstore, is just let a book call to me. I just will sometimes pick up a book, especially since I have credit and I'm very willing to take a chance on something. I'm willing to pick up a book based on the tagline or just barely what's written on the back. And I would never do this at a regular bookstore. I almost never would, because sometimes I think to myself, being in the world of BookTube now, when I'm at like Barnes & Noble or an independent bookstore, I think, if I haven't heard of that, is that any good? Should I take a chance on it? Whereas if I'm at the used bookstore and I'm using my credit, I think, I haven't heard of that, but I wonder if it's any good. And so I'm more positive about that than I am at a regular bookstore. That's one thing that I'll say that I just love about charity shops, Goodwills, used bookstores. I am just very willing to take a chance. And that's sometimes how you find the best gems, in my opinion. Now, this next book is not a hidden gem. But the next book is Katharine of Aragon, The True Queen by Alison Weir. I have so many issues with Alison Weir. I'm sure most of you know this by now, that I have so many issues with her as a historian, but I actually think her historical fiction is very, very good. I read a book by her last year that was kind of one of my favorites of the year, kind of a sleeper hit for me. I just couldn't put it down, that had to do with Richard III. And that is where she and I disagree most fervently, is on Richard III. It really truly is. But this is her historical fiction series on the wives of Henry VIII. I actually have the third book in this series about Jane Seymour, and I was going to read them out of order because I really liked her writing and that other historical fiction I read, and I decided I don't really need to read these in order. I know the order of the wives anyway, but I just can't resist it. I always have to start a story with Katharine of Aragon. I just do. Katharine is my favorite of Henry's wives, and so just knowing my history with Alison Weir, I'm betting that Katharine is not her favorite of Henry's wives. I'm just gonna assume, because I feel like she and I disagree on a lot of things, so I'm gonna be interested to see how this goes. But I love Katharine of Aragon. So I'm excited about this. I really liked that her historical fiction was also really long and also really gossipy, and I'm just kind of in the mood for that right now. So this might be one that I pick up pretty soon. I'm really excited about it, so let's just see how she does this. One that I took a chance on. I have no clue what this book is. I don't know who this author is. I was really in the thriller section trying to figure out John le Carré and trying to figure out where to start with him. Although I've read Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, I always go into a used bookstore and I try to figure out his books, and it just does not work for me. I need to get online and like make a chart about John le Carré because I really enjoy his writing, but I want to read him from the start. But right in the section with John le Carré was something called Berlin Noir, which is apparently a trilogy that is all bound up in one by Philip Kerr. I know nothing about this man, but this is apparently crime taking place in Berlin in the 1930s. It was sounding really good to me. I really like things that are set in Berlin. I've been really, really interested in specifically a Cold War thriller. I want to read one. This is not Cold War, but it is in Berlin. I really want a Cold War thriller that is set in Berlin. That's really what I want. And if you have any recommendations, please let me know. down below because I'm just in the mood for that right now. But I thought I'll take what I can get. It sounds really good because I think it's amping up for World War II. And so there's some really interesting things going on. But this is published by like a Penguin Modern Classic kind of. So I'm shocked I've never heard about this, but I'm really excited about this one just because I've never heard about it. And so I think it will be interesting to kind of try something new and get out of my comfort zone a little bit. Last but not least, I have some nonfiction. I've been on a bit of a Titanic kick recently. I've read a couple of Titanic books, and today actually is the day, the anniversary of the sinking of Titanic. It's April 15th. So I picked up a couple of books on the Titanic. I didn't know that they had any there. I just thought this was Providence. This was meant to be. So I picked up the Titanic Reader, which includes more than 8 decades of writings written about the Titanic, essentially from the time that the disaster happened up to sometime in the 70s or 80s. I think it's going to be very interesting because apparently it has writings from Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, Joseph Conrad, G.K. Chesterton, which on an objective level, I know they were alive at the same time as Titanic, but that is so strange to me that they would comment on it, actually. I don't know why that's so weird, but I can't wrap my mind around that. But it also has some survivor stories in it. This was published by Penguin, and I'm really excited about it. So this is one that I will probably read in pieces here and there, but I am so excited I found this. I was over the moon when I saw this on the shelf. I also picked up How It Happened, Titanic, the epic story from the people who were there. So as I understand it, this book binds up some of the survivor stories, a lot of the survivor stories, and also some of the testimony given at the Senate inquiry that was done after Titanic's sinking. And I just recently read a survivor's story of Titanic, which was Archibald Gracie. He's probably the most famous survivor who wrote a narrative of his time on board Titanic, and it was absolutely fascinating. I don't know if it will have as much detail and research done as his did because he also was a historian. And so I think he went into it wanting to do a certain level of research, but I'm excited about this. I think it's going to do it telling it across kind of a good timeline. So we might read a little bit from one person and then move into the next chapter and get more from them. I don't think it's going to be cohesive, one person and then the next. I think it's going to go along the timeline of the ship sinking and then the inquiry. So I'm interested in this. I'm excited about it. This might be another one that I pick up very soon. I'm super excited because I'm really in a Titanic mood right now. The last two that I picked up, I'm shocked they had. One of them is The British Are Coming by Rick Atkinson, which is volume 1 in his proposed trilogy on the American Revolution. I am so excited about this. I've heard it's very, very dense, and I've heard some people say they really don't like it. But I've also heard a lot of people say that they did and that they really enjoyed it. It's been a long time since I read an American Revolution nonfiction, and I'm excited that this is going to be my next one. We are entering the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, and I just am so excited to celebrate it by reading everything I can get my hands on. So this is one that I am really pumped about, especially because the early revolution is the time I'm most interested in. So this is from 1775 to 1777, kind of going from, I guess, Lexington and Concord up to the battle at Princeton, maybe? Yep, Princeton. So that's going to be very interesting. There's a lot of maps. Love it. So I'm excited about this one, also in just incredible condition, beautiful. I'm so excited that I was able to find that. Last but not least, I picked up Natasha's Dance, A Cultural History of Russia. I've heard nothing but good things about this. Absolutely nothing but good things. Everyone rants and raves about this on Goodreads. So I'm excited that I was able to find a copy of it. I don't think this goes from the Middle Ages. No, it goes from the 18th century with the building of St. Petersburg, culminating in the Soviet regime. But this is another that I am really excited about. I'm excited about all of these. This was a pretty good haul from them. It's not the best that I've ever had, but it's not the worst. They really had quite a bit today. So my hope is the next time that I unhaul, there won't be as much there. But I will definitely do another video in this series. I will show you the books that I'm going to unhaul, and then we can do a count again. Count how many books are leaving and then how many come back in. But this is how it went today. I would love to know if you have read any of these. I would love to know too how you go about unhauling. So let me know your strategy for unhauling down below, but that's going to be all for me today. I hope you're all having a great week. Happy reading. Goodbye.